So yes, it's a big news day here in America, Mike. My gosh, I mean, we're not going to get political because you have your own opinions, which none of us agree with. But besides that,
Yes. That's
no, I mean, with Boehner resigning because of the Pope,
well, he didn't write. Well, it's
that's
funny because all I heard the last couple of days was it was his life's goal to get the Pope to speak in front of Congress, and almost like it was almost like he waited for this to happen before he finally resigned. And if you notice, and I'm not going to get political here, but if you notice when presidential candidates from your own party are running against the Congress of their own party, you know
right.
that the leadership is going to take a hit. So I think this was done so Republican can't, because if a Republican wants to win the presidency next year, they're going to need the Congress and they're going to need the Senate to be able to pass their legislation. So they can't win the nomination running against their own Congress. So that would sort of just defeat the purpose. So that's, yeah, we had that. We had the Pope. We have, and I'm sure I don't know how much you want to delve deeply into the Patrick Kane stuff, but all I can say is this. The prospects game in Buffalo was very interesting last night. But it has, during basically a lull in the second period when not a lot was going on, we had this kabuki theater of Kane's accuser's attorney making a statement, and nobody knew what it was about. And then he basically resigns. And now I'm sorry. I mentioned to somebody that this is like an episode of Law and Order SVU.
Oh, it's worse than that at this point.
I mean, it's got as many twists and turns as one of those shows, and it's just, and honestly, I think the way, who knows the way it goes, but the way that show rips things from the headlines, next year you're probably going to have an episode of Law and Order SVU with a character named Peter Kind or something like that. It'd be like Patrick Kane, but it was different.
Yeah,
It's
this is like an episode of the Newsroom. This show, you can see that too. It also has that written all over it.
yeah. So, but we'll talk about that. But
Yeah, no, I will try not to too much, but we have to discuss it a little bit. I mean, it's at the point now where the chances of him getting convicted seem like almost impossible because there's so much going on. There's so much ridiculousness of tampering or whatever you want to call it.
I'm of the opinion that, I mean, there is so much appearance of impropriety here, appearance of the chain of evidence being broken, even though, the Erie County District Attorney came out this morning and said nothing was tampered with. We have all the evidence cataloged and everything like that. Right now, I don't see how, let's just say this. They might go to the grand jury. They might put him in front of the grand jury. I don't see the grand jury finding enough evidence to make a charge. So I don't know. Who knows? And I can't say that for sure because I don't know the evidence that they have. But based on this sideshow that's been happening the last couple of days, who knows what's going to happen? Even legal analysts who work for the ESPNs and the TSNs and the sports nets, they don't know what's going on. So if they don't know, who the hell am I?
No, I mean this has reached bizarre. This has reached bizarre land at this point. Like just the way everything's been said. Like I don't know. There's so many. Just the comments of there's no DNA evidence below her waist. I mean that in and of itself is just a bizarre statement to make. And I mean whatever that means. I mean we all know what it sort of means, but at the same time, it also implies is there DNA evidence above her waist? Like it's a really weird way of saying things.
Yes.
To me, the whole thing is just completely.
Yeah, and I mean, see, the thing is, everybody extrapolates suspicion from things that happen, and does that mean that because I mean the accuser's attorney resigns, the Erie County DA says that there was no evidence that was tampered with, that everything is cataloged. So where did this bag come from? And if the bag came from the mother, and she just made this up in terms of where it was found, then that taints everything, because if the mother is lying about that, then could the daughter be lying about? And that's the thing. And the attorney was very specific. Like, whatever happened with this bag does not affect what happened with the accuser herself. But how can you separate the two? That's the problem.
No, I mean, it's we'll find out in time. I have a feeling, and we're gonna just get into the show because we won't want to discuss this in the show.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I mean, I have a feel. It feels to me like, and this is just a completely having watched a lot of really bad spy movies over my time, and watch and read a lot of books. This feels to me like there's one major thing that we don't know. Like, there's one completely strange thing. Like, I don't know what that could be at all. Like, her father was the guy who was driving Patrick Kane in the car, or what? There's something if there was a movie, there would be some sort of weird connection, and I know that's not the case, but you know what I'm saying. There's just something. Yeah. It feels like there's something big that everybody on the inside knows that no one else knows, and that's why all this stuff is so disjointed.
It's sort of a connect the dots.
Yeah, so it's disjointed from the outside looking in, and that's how that goes. Anyway, let's start the show because we got hockey to talk about. We got Ty with us. How you doing, Ty?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Oh, I like the Ninja Turtles poster, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Say no to drugs. Say yes to pizza.
I mean, has anything described me more? Probably not.
No. And actually, today I myself am eating pizza.
Is that a tomato pie?
No, this is the thinnest. This is this really thin pizza called.
I was gonna say, jeez.
I like thin pizza a lot. But there's this place called Jules. I don't know if it's a chain or what it is, but it's really cool. It's a Jules Pizza, and it's like the hit of our neighborhood right now. Everyone's going there all the time. So there was a thing there for the kids' elementary school last night. So my wife came home with a bunch of pizzas from there. So
nice.
That's what we're surviving on right now.
Cold pizza is the breakfast of champions.
Absolutely. This was supposed to be heated. It's one of those things that I just put it in the oven and never turned it on, and then came down like, damn it. But anyway, so Ty, I love the Ninja. That's awesome. What a great backdrop. I can't top that, even with my Gumby in the background. So, all right, here we go. The day is the 24th of September, right?
25th.
25th. Thank you very much. Okay, it's Friday.
I'm going to imitate Gumby.
Well, the funniest thing is we have a Gumby costume in our house, of course. Don't ask why, but yesterday my daughter found it and scared the living daylights out of me by waking me up, walking on the bed as Gumby, giant Gumby. It was just the kind of thing that you definitely have nightmares about for the rest. I know I've had this because it's a really goofy head with a big smile on it, and then it's so silly looking. So,
it's Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, well, we have one of those too. We have a giant inflatable Stay Puft Marshmallow Man that sits outside our house on Halloween. It's like 12 feet tall. It's awesome. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, September 25th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
And I'm Ty Anderson.
And I'm Pokey. No, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday around 1 p.m. Eastern Time to kind of fill you in on the hockey goings and comings, and we are always happy on Fridays to have Ty. That's why we call it Ty Day, and I'm sorry, Ty, it's no offense to you that the last 2 Fridays I've been out. I feel bad that I haven't seen you for quite a while, but
yeah, I took it personally. So
yeah, you should.
It should be a fun show.
I know, it probably was better. But you're definitely it was just coincidence. So today I'm here though, and we're all set, and despite the fact the Pope is descending upon my city tomorrow, and all the roads are closed and everyone's freaking out, and it's just unbelievable. I can't even. I mean, the Pope's been phenomenal. If you've been watching his stuff, it's been really great. The stuff that they just had at Ground Zero, I just saw on TV, was unbelievable. But the people around here are doing nothing but complaining about what he's doing for traffic. So, and I am literally 45 minutes west of Philadelphia. That's why it just seems like absolutely ridiculous that it should be affecting me at all. but it has all of our soccer games were canceled for the weekend. Everything is just everyone's freaking out. So anyway,
it's hope paralysis on the Eastern Seaboard.
Yes. So we need a papal miracle. But okay, so let's move on to Boston, because we have a couple big Boston news items today, oddly enough, because we have Ty, which is really, really good timing, as Mike texted me earlier.
They're dropping like flies, Ty. What the hell?
First of all, yes, the defense, another defenseman down, Seidenberg, Chara. How long is there any indication on how long the Chara injury is, Ty?
They're just saying day to day, which is, can be good, can also be bad.
Right.
I looked at last night's hit. I mean, basically what happened is he was hit by Ryan Bourque, the son of Ray Bourque.
Yep.
Right in front of the Boston bench there. He took an awkward sort of tumble backwards, it appeared, and didn't look like anything serious. But then again, I thought the Tavares-Chara collision didn't look like anything serious last year, so that sets off some alarms. But yeah, they're just saying day to day. There's no update. He's still under evaluation. They are going to play this one extremely carefully. It's the preseason. They don't need him getting hurt in the preseason. Worse than he already has, really. So this is a huge thing for the Boston Bruins right now. I mean, now without Seidenberg and potentially without Chara, I mean, this is a team that could begin their season with Torrey Krug, Adam McQuaid, and Matt Irwin, and even Kevin Miller to a degree, as their only NHL defensemen that have any sort of experience.
Can I just bring this up? I know in other professional sports, especially football, and like Rex Ryan in Buffalo did this year. You'll never get Rex Ryan to admit that he did this. But LaShawn McCoy, who played for the Eagles last year, was traded to the Bills. He was out for the entire preseason with a hamstring injury. He's been questionable for the first 2 weeks of the season with a hamstring injury. The suspicion is he doesn't have a hamstring injury. They just don't want him practicing. They didn't want him to get hurt in preseason games because he's a late 20s running back who's been beaten up over his career, and they don't want to put him in action. Bruce Smith, the Hall of Fame defensive end for the Bills, he always used to have his surgeries on his knee right at the beginning of training camp, so he didn't have to participate in training camp. I found out he never had surgeries. They just didn't want him to play in training camp. Why don't teams protect their veteran players? They know they come into shape. Why do they have to play in preseason games? Why do they risk injury like this?
It's a darn good question. I mean, go ahead, Ty.
Well, I'm saying the Bruins, I mean, last night was the first game. They've played 3 games now. Last night was the first game that they played Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, Zdeno Chara, and they've still yet to play Tuukka Rask. So, in a way, they were trying to shelter their stars, you'd say. But with somebody like Chara coming off a knee injury last year, and he had an ankle injury at the end of the year, I think almost they want to see where he's at when it comes to game speed. But I agree for the most part. I mean, 5 years ago, you would only see Chara play in one of the 5 preseason games or whatever it was. So in throwing him in there, it's always dicey, especially at 38 years old now. They need him to be healthy. They need him to be the rock back there. But at the same time, I think you want him to get up to game speed, and that's why he was in last night. That's the only reason he was in last night. But obviously, he's coming back to hurt them right now.
Yeah, and now Seidenberg, I mean, I'm hearing 8 weeks, and I'm hearing back surgery. I mean, he had knee problems, now back problems, and this guy's falling apart, Ty.
Yeah, I mean, he plays hard minutes, too. You got to remember that. I think when it comes to, what he is right now, he's 34 years old, but there are a lot of miles on that 34-year-old between the Stanley Cup playoffs every year where he was almost leading the league in minutes, it seemed, every time the Bruins made a deep run. And then you had, just his style, the bang and crash, the blocking shots, I mean, everything that comes with it. So back surgery, 8 weeks, has that ever sounded accurate, really? Going under the knife with a herniated disc in your lumbar and you're going to be back in 2 months? I really don't know if that's going to be the case, but so that creates another problem there. I think the Bruins are more equipped to handle the loss of Seidenberg, given the fact they had to play without him for basically half a season 2 years ago, than they are Chara, because you can't replace Chara. There's nobody internally or externally that can come in and be a 6'9" monster and shut down guys like Crosby and Ovechkin and Stamkos. There's nobody else like him. So I think this is a major loss for the Boston Bruins. And you compound that with Seidenberg, I mean, they're in trouble right now. There's no doubt.
Defensively, I mean, they're going to be looking around. Obviously, the Bufflin rumors are going to fly around like crazy. That's going to be the guy that everybody thinks that makes sense because he seems like he's a Bruin. He seems like he was born to be a Bruin or a Flyer or a Ranger or one of those teams. So, you look at Bufflin and he's out there. But, I mean, beyond that, because it seems as if Chara is going to be back. It seems like it's not like I don't think it's a season-threatening injury. It seems like it's going to be something that's going to be back. What's been the mood? I mean, you've been around this team for a lot of years now, Ty. Like, this it's got to be a very different training camp than any you've ever attended.
Yeah, this training camp has really sort of been about putting last year behind them and moving forward with a new system and a new structure. They've spent a lot of their camp on redefining their breakouts when it comes to, that first pass out of their own end. Because last year, let's be honest, they were pretty awful defensively, and that came back to their inability to get the puck going out of their own zone. And this is very rare for a Claude Julien squad or a Boston Bruins squad. You never see that, really. So this was a summer training camp that's been really heavy on teaching and learning. And when I say that, I mean learning from the coach, learning from the mistakes of last year, and moving forward with it. Yeah. Because they know the NHL landscape is changing. They know it's a quicker game. It's a more skilled game, and they're trying to adapt with it. And you're seeing that. I know a lot of people talk about, guys like Zach Ronaldo and I'll just say Ronaldo right now because that's the easy one, but they talk about this, and they said the Bruins are stuck in the past. They're stuck with the physicality and the aggressiveness. The way they're utilizing Zach Ronaldo right now is much different than the way you saw him utilized in Philadelphia. They're trying to make Ronaldo a penalty killer. They're trying to get him to play smart and be more of an agitator and a rat than a mere enforcer. They're not having him engage as much as he used to. He'll chat and he'll do his thing, but he's not quick to drop the gloves anymore. He's drawing penalties. He's played in 2 preseason games for the Boston Bruins, and he's drawn 4 penalties.
Wow.
That's not with him doing anything besides skating hard and driving in the net, driving to the boards. I mean, he's not doing anything that you saw him do in Philadelphia that got him suspensions and got him fines and benched and everything in between. So it's really different what they're trying to do. It seems that they're just trying to annoy teams with speed and sort of just outworking them than how they used to.
Sounds like they're trying to use him in the Patrick Coletta Buffalo role because he was a penalty killer playing third, fourth line and just a professional disturber of the highest order. And if they can get that out of him, then that's valuable. But Ty, I wanted to ask you, I mean, with this slew of injuries, I mean, there was enough ammo to criticize Don Sweeney over the summer with some of the moves that they made. I mean, we don't know about the draft picks. A couple of the deals were decent, but they were talking to Cody Franzen. There were veteran Hoff out there, players who signed really late in the summer for really reasonable money. And Don Sweeney didn't go out and I mean, he signed Matt Irwin, but that was the only one that really sort of plugged a hole in terms of depth. He had opportunities out there. Now he's going to have to probably give up a draft pick or a prospect from a team to be able to get somebody if with Seidenberg out, or if they decide they're going to bring up Joe Morrow and plug the hole that way. I mean, is there any criticism, or is there a growing criticism of Sweeney and how he approached the summer?
Yes and no, because I think some people out there, they looked at Cody Franzen, they thought he could be the option, but when it came back down to it, and you looked at what the Boston Bruins were doing, they didn't want to give him a multi-year deal. And I don't think necessarily that he was a player that you'd be necessarily sold on to commit a multi-year deal to. And speaking of Joe Morrow, he's looked absolutely fantastic in the camp. He's playing very smart in his own end, which has been a huge boost for the Boston Bruins. I think that he could be a guy that slides in and replaces Seidenberg at the start of the season anyways. But they liked what they have with these young guys. They have a lot of them. Between Colin Miller, Joe Morrow, Zach Trotman, the list goes on really in terms of their defensive pipeline here and who they trust and who they think can jump to the NHL this year. They have guys, and I think when it comes down to it, is that they began this camp with 8 to 9 what they felt NHL-ready defensemen. Now, obviously, there wasn't a spot for all 9 of those guys, but now with injuries to Seidenberg and Chara, there might be. They weren't going to lose Joe Morrow because he would have to go through waivers if they were to send him down. Right. And there was no way Joe Morrow was going to survive waivers because he still has a pretty promising-looking future right now.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that was a huge factor for the Bruins. I don't think that Marek Zidlicki or a Cody Franzen was going to make the difference between the Boston Bruins being what they are right now and being a cup favorite or a cup contender. And I think Don Sweeney sort of realized that. Obviously, that changes with injuries for sure. But I think internally, Sweeney has been a guy that I've said before, he's so big on development. He likes the idea of bringing these guys up from the bottom. And that was always going to be his MO here. But now that there are injuries and now that you lack, a lot of you don't have many games back there of NHL experience in the top 4 role, the Bruins might now decide that they're going to switch up what they do because they have a lot of guys that can be 3rd or 4th line players in the NHL right now. They have a lot of those bodies and not so many defensive bodies. So maybe they flip one of these guys into a depth defenseman with some NHL experience. We know there are a few teams out there that are long in the tooth when it comes to defense. So maybe they can work out a trade of some sort there, because I think that's probably the best way to do this. They have so many 4th line talents. They have so many 3rd line talents that don't really necessarily have the space to break into this NHL right now. So maybe they flip one of these guys.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea for sure. I mean, a lot of teams are in the same boat as far as there are a ton of 3rd and 4th liners, which makes you think that there is room for expansion in this league, because there are so many good players that are getting sent down already. We're already seeing it everywhere at this point, So I could see that for sure. I'm going to log out after this just so you guys can keep talking. We're trying to kill our little echo. Maybe turn down a little bit, Ty, on your side. I don't know. Yeah. That's what maybe. There we go. That's gone. So there we go. That's better. Cool. So yeah, Ronaldo. I want to talk about Ronaldo for a second. I'm going to go back to that because it's really interesting what's happening there. Having watched Zach Ronaldo so much, I was not a fan of Zach Ronaldo at all in Philadelphia, mainly because he got into sort of his own little death spiral here, where he would make a bad play, and then they would bench him, and then they would say, come back and play responsibly. Then he would go back out, and he would hit somebody because it's the only way he knows how to play hockey, and then they would bench him again. And it was really kind of I'm not going to say it was completely, I think everything was fair that they did to Zach Ronaldo, but at the same time I could see from Ronaldo's perspective how it could have, it felt like it wasn't fair, like there was there was too much, but from the outside perspective, he was just definitely making dumb plays, and taking dumb penalties and getting suspensions. But they loved him here to the point where, I think I said this before, there was a trade proposal a long time ago now, when way back, when this is before, PK Subban had even really become what he had become, when the Flyers were talking to Montreal about PK Subban. And it was Braden Shen, and there was another player involved, and Zach Ronaldo was involved. And Zach Ronaldo was one of the reasons the Flyers didn't want to do the trade at the time. The Flyers would not trade Ronaldo in that deal. And I remember being just dumbfounded by that at the time. So I could see him turning into a serviceable player, though. I can see him turning into a Sean Avery type player. Really annoying, which is what Boston's going to need. They're going to need that kind of annoyance, and I think that is a good move. Are you getting a there's definitely a gap, though. You're in that spot with the Bruins right now where you have guys in their mid-30s and guys in their 20s. Yeah. And not a lot of guys like in their upper 20s, right? That's where you are right now.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic. I honestly look at the Bruins right now, and I think that they are almost like another Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of veterans and there's a lot of young guys.
Yep.
And you don't necessarily have a defined image of what you are right now. And I think that, I as for as many good things I've said about this team today anyways, I still think that they're at the very best 3rd place club in the Atlantic. I think that they are more of a wild card team than anything else. Mm-hmm. Because I think that with a core like Tuukka Rask and Chara and Bergeron and Krejci and Marchand, you have the space to be a playoff team, a competitive team. But when it comes to that, you don't have that image. You hope that it takes shape at a certain point this year, and they figure out what they are as an organization, as a team. But until then, you're sort of in the middle here. You are a Detroit. You are a Philly. You're not. You didn't make upgrades like a Pittsburgh did, or even, Montreal has the best goalie in the league in their crease, so that always helps. So they are at a crossroads here, and they have been for a while now, where we've sort of talked about this before, I think, where they don't necessarily have a youthful direction or It's not their core is that old. I mean, Patrice Bergeron and Krejci are 29 and 30, so
Right.
that's not necessarily. They're not ancient, in terms
Right.
of hockey. They can play for another 8, 9 years. So, I look at this, and the oldest part of their core is their back end. When it comes to Chara and Seidenberg, they're 38 and 34. So you got to find that guy that is the next one in line. I know they thought they had it in Hamilton. Obviously, he did not resign. He was traded, so you lost that. So, but you have the young pieces with Pasternak and with Spooner up front. It's just finding it in the back end that I think is going to be the biggest challenge for this team.
Is there a person who's going to fill the Lucic role? Like that. That's what I want to know. Like, is it possible to fill the Lucic role, or is he something that you just have to sort of just hope for many players to fill the Lucic role? What do you think?
Well, I can tell you right now, they're hoping that Matt Bolesky is Lucic. He's playing with Krejci and Pasternak on the first line.
Yep.
He's not as hard of a hitter as Milan Lucic is. I don't think anyone is in this league, to be honest with you. So that obviously you can't expect that to be the case, but it's sort of a Lucic by committee, if you will, because the power play unit has Jimmy Hayes in front of the net, which used to be Milan Lucic's spot. Hayes is a 6'6" kid, so he's got the size. He's a bit more wiry, I would say, than Lucic in terms of his ability in front of the net. Lucic would stand there like a truck and nobody could move him.
Right.
Hayes is a bit more skillful, longer stick, seems to have more of a reach there. So, I mean, Bolesky's on the line, but Hayes on the power play. So it's like I'm trying to figure out how they're doing it really right now. But their two big off-season their winger additions are definitely here in town to replace Lucic's production.
Right.
Unfortunately, the position that you just mentioned, defense, that they need to infuse some youth in, that's a position that traditionally, unless you have a top 5 pick in the draft, you're not going to have a player jumping into the NHL as an 18-year-old. Defense, more than any other position, is an area that needs to be developed, where a player plays an extra year in junior, or stays a couple years in college, or plays a year or two in the AHL. So unless Pro and Trotman are in that pipeline and they have enough confidence that they can be top 4 guys, the only way that they can get those players is a young defenseman who can be a core type defenseman, is to make a trade. But then you're sort of defeating the purpose. You're pretty good up front with young players, and you have to trade one of them to trade for a defenseman. It's the domino effect from the Hamilton deal, from the whole Hamilton situation, I think has really set the Bruins back years.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about this too, guys. I mean, for every Aaron Ekblad that comes in the league at 18 years old and is lighting the world on fire, you have a Tyler Myers who he has a great first year, and he struggles to find his footing for the next, 4 seasons, really, before he's back to being this guy. So I think that's something that these teams have to consider when they are drafting and developing defensemen, is that for every positive, there's like 10 horror stories, it seems, where a guy never quite, figures it out at this level.
Oh yeah, there's a definite. I mean, being in a city right now that has just a ton of good young defensemen that they're afraid to play, that they're afraid to bring up. I mean, they sent Provorov back, they sent Sanheim back. It doesn't, it looks like Gus Pierre might be in there, but he still could be on the AHL. I mean, all these defensemen were dazzling in the preseason, and they're sending them back. I don't think the NHL knows how to deal with young defensemen. I think there's a real. I don't think there's a definite yin and yang to this thing. You can see it, like right now, at least in Philadelphia. This is a team that's always been impatient. This is a team that's always been. We're gonna if a player comes in and plays out of their mind, they're gonna make the team. They remember Couturier makes the team as an 18-year-old a few years ago, and I don't think that was a mistake. I think that he's shown that he could play, and I don't think that messed up his development. This year, we go in there, and Travis Konecny comes in and looks better than any player I've ever seen in the Flyers training camp. I mean, this kid was just unbelievable, flying around, and is sent back almost instantly. Which is, and people are saying, yeah, that's the right thing to do, and probably it is, but, because he was the 24th pick in the draft and not the 3rd pick in the draft. When the 3rd pick in the draft, you always have to keep up, but, in another years, Konecny would be good enough to be the 3rd pick in the draft. So I was questioning, I was having this discussion with the GM yesterday. I said, do you guys really know what the hell you're doing? Because there seems like there's a whole bunch of, if you're in a city where it's been patient forever, there's this, we got to get it done now. And if you're in a city that's always been impatient, it's like, oh, we'll just send them back. It's this yin yang of hockey. It's really funny to watch, and I can see that in Philadelphia. And I feel as if Philadelphia and Boston have always sort of paralleled each other in this kind of thing. They always have gone, they want to be physical. That always is a part of their game. They've got to be physical, but they're always hearing that they're too slow. And then they come back to being, physical. Mike, your thoughts?
And the Boston organization has always had a history of rushing their well-regarded prospect defenseman. Going back, Bobby Orr was an immortal, but he played in the NHL at 19. Ray Bourque was drafted in 1979, and he played as a 19-year-old.
So far, you're not convincing me that they did the wrong things, Mike.
No. But those are success stories. But Gordon Kluzak, Glenn Wesley. They had a number of defensemen. Glenn Wesley had a great rookie season and then never really got up to the same level that he had as a rookie. And that's the same thing with, some people think that, Hamilton, they didn't really rush. He had a phenomenal year in the OHL. They bring him up. And he had a couple good years with the Bruins. To me, that is the point where this team, I think, made their big error. It's like they had no answer if they were going to trade Dougie Hamilton because they didn't think he was worth the big money that he was asking.
Their choice, that Mike. I really think Hamilton wasn't their choice to make. Unfortunately, that was out of their hands. I really feel that way. That's how you agree with that?
Yeah, they offered him big money. They offered him in excess of $6.5 million per year.
Yeah. And
he said no. And then he signs with the Flames for $5.5 million or whatever it was. And
that tells you all you need to know. That tells you
you're left to go. Yeah. Okay, well, clearly it wasn't. It wasn't.
Could they have gotten more for him? That you can argue. You can definitely argue they could have gotten more for him. Like they could have gotten.
Oh, I'll argue that to the death of me, really, because the Flames have a ton of prospects. For you to not get any of them is crazy.
Yeah, they could have.
Calgary has a lot of good defensemen, right? So they couldn't have gotten one of those defensemen out of Calgary.
Right. They could have gotten more from him. They could have done what they did with the Lucic deal and made that deal and then flipped the things that they got in that deal to another team to get what they needed. And they did it in one situation. They didn't do it in another. And that's what I'm saying. You've left yourself. They were thin before these injuries, and now, this potentially could be catastrophic if day to day means 365 days. I think
we can all safely say that Chara is going to play, but at the same time, you can also say that a player like Chara is always day to day. Okay, at this point in his career, that's the reality of it, right? A guy like that's going to miss games every month, like 1 or 2 games a month, and it's just going to be happening. So,
at a time that they can't afford to have him missing any days because they're already shorthanded.
Yeah,
listen, I think we're all in agreement that we talked on draft day. I think all of us were sending texts and whatnot, and we thought for sure that when the Boston Bruins, when they traded for LA's first-round pick, when they traded for Calgary's first-round pick, we thought that was going to be that we thought those were going to be flipped to a San Jose or to an Arizona where they could draft a defenseman. Obviously, that didn't happen, and you can't help but feel that was their original objective.
That was Hannafin was the whole deal. That to me, I'll always think that. I will always believe that they thought they could get Hannafin for what they had.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that they really did, and it makes some sense because if you're looking at Carolina, right, who takes Hannafin, you get those 3 picks. Why not? If you're Carolina, those 3 picks might be more valuable to you than just taking Hannafin.
I think the target was Arizona. I don't think from what I'd heard, Carolina was not going to move out of number 5 no matter what the situation was. I think the target was Arizona, and once Arizona locked in on Dylan Strome, then they weren't going to move the pick either. And I know Toronto.
I don't agree with you. I think it was Carolina because I think they knew. I think most people, then when I talked to them later, although Arizona was definitely talking to them as well about Hamilton, there's no question about that was going on, right? But once they couldn't make that deal for Hamilton with Arizona, I think Arizona was out of their radar. I think they knew they had talked so much to Arizona, they knew that getting those 3 picks wasn't going to get them up to number 2. So but they also knew when they drew it out that no one was going to take Hannafin before Carolina, And
I think the only way they would have gotten the number 3 out of Arizona was if they included Hamilton in the deal. But the problem was Hamilton probably wouldn't have signed in Arizona. He wanted to go where he wanted to go.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, whether Arizona might have tried to convince him otherwise, it's hard to say. I mean,
Right.
but I think you're dead on, Ty. I think that they gambled on what's a really crazy, we've all been in hockey pools where you try to make those kind of moves. I'm going to pick up this player, this player, this player to get that player over there. It's very rare you can pull them off. I mean, once in a while you get the Brian Burke who manages to get the Sedin twins by doing all kinds of crazy things, but it doesn't happen very often.
That was a different era, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, no, a totally different era. Well, I'm looking forward to. I mean, I like some of the Boston Bruins young players. One thing, having followed them closely for a long time, I've wanted to see some of these young players up. I've wanted to see Murphy playing defense. I think there's some benefits to this. At the end of the day, I don't think that they're. I think they have a great coach, and I think that great coach is going to get them pretty far as well. It's interesting to hear that they're changing their system a little bit, because I guess it shows that the coach is willing to change the system for the players. Ty?
Yeah, I mean he realizes that they were a pretty flavorless bunch last year when it comes to their style, and they didn't put fear in anybody, with how they played, and their aggressiveness wasn't there. For whatever reason, the Boston Bruins did not look like they cared last year. It just didn't look like they were engaged at like they had been in previous years. Maybe it was just the sort of the mindset of we're not good enough to win creeping into them and their nightly game. But for whatever reason, they were flat. They were stale. They did nothing of substance last year, and I think the coach realized that. So, and he understands that his job was on the line. Even though he was given an extension last year, he knows that he is under close watch. So he realizes that he has to make this team, energetic and effective once again. Because if he doesn't, he's out the door. He's the first one gone if this team struggles, and he realizes that. And he is a smart coach. I think he's probably. And everyone hates hearing this. He's probably the best Bruins coach of the modern era. I mean, he has been without a doubt the most consistent performer. He's a few wins away. I think he's 30 or 40 wins away from being the most wins behind the Bruins bench. So,
yeah,
he's been there for a while, and he's been to 2 Stanley Cups. He's won 1. They've made it to the second round at least almost every year under his watch. So. I think he's been a great coach, and he understands that the times are changing, so he has to as well.
That's good. I mean, in any situation, he if he was available, he would be snapped up right away. So he's one of those coaches for sure. He would be enormously popular if he was a free agent. So Mike, David Clarkson. All right, so David Clarkson is not going to get suspended for the
exhibition season is not his friend.
Right. The preseason is it's not like Clarkson to come into a new team in the preseason and get suspended, right? I mean, he did this. Obviously, this is how he started his career in Toronto, and everybody remembers it very well. And it really affected everything that happened there. And he almost had it happen last night when he kneed Justin Fontaine during the team's win that was 5-2 over the Wild.
Yeah, I haven't seen the video, but from everything,
no one has. This is the funny thing. This game was not televised. All right, so I want to know how they're reviewing this. This is my question.
Well, the only thing I can think of is that they're taking the words of the officials, because the wording was that I saw this morning was that they believed that the penalty was sufficient, and the only thing I can think of is, well, they thought the penalty was sufficient because they have no proof otherwise. If they have video of it,
there was video. A source told the Dispatch. This is from.
Aaron Portzline.
A source told the Dispatch that the NHL, after reviewing the incident using club-provided game film, so using the film that the Blue Jackets themselves gave them, which is pretty funny.
Or it could be the arena cam, because
determined that Clarkson's punishment by the NHL officials during the game was deemed sufficient. All right, so Clarkson's gonna live to play another day, which is good, because I mean that he's definitely I want to see Clarkson on this team, because I think Clarkson makes a lot of sense on the Blue Jackets. I want to see him play. I want to see him do something there. I believe it's going to turn out to be quite a good move for him.
Well, let's just say that he needed to move out of. He needed to get out of Toronto. That situation again was toxic. He went in there, with all the hype of the 7-year contract, $5.25 million, the cover of the Toronto Sun calling him Wendell Clarkson, all this stuff, and it was overblown. I think he's a good player. I think he's a good role player. I think he can score 10 to 15, maybe 20 goals on a good year. but he's at that age. I think he's 30 now, that he's starting to break down physically, and based on the type of game that he plays, he's a willing combatant. He will fight for his teammates, and I think in the construct of the Columbus Blue Jackets with some skill players there, I think he fits in either on a second or on a third line, and I think he'll score that 15, maybe 20 goals, depending on like what center he plays with. But he's got to stop this brainless idiocy in the exhibition season. You're David Clarkson. You're an established player. You don't have to prove yourself in this way like he tried to do when he was in Toronto by coming off the bench and sticking up for his teammate. You don't have to do that. Now, this could have been a mistake. I haven't seen the video. It could have been an accident. If it was purposeful, it's stupid. You don't do that in an exhibition game, and you don't do it if you're David Clarkson and you've had the things that he's done before. So stop it. Just
we never will
when the regular season starts and go from there.
No, you're right. You're right. I want to move on because I got a couple other things. I've got an email from somebody. Okay, I really appreciate this. We got an email sent to us. And I'm trying to find his name real quickly. But anyway, we were talking yesterday in the show, and I'll find the name as we talk here, about how, should goals that are scored during the 3-on-3, have some sort of asterisk next to them, that there's points gathered, should that goal count? We talk about how, goals that are in the shootout don't count, so if you score the game-winning goal in the shootout, it doesn't count. And we all sort of agreed that, they should count, but we do think it will skew scoring to a degree.
Sure.
And then I got an email saying, well, think about it this way: the NHL, even though they don't count the goals scored in the shootout, the goalies get wins in the shootout. The win counts from so there's a statistic in the shootout that does. I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch,
but that's the only statistical category that does count for them. They don't count in terms of goals scored during a shootout as part of the goals against. It's a separate category, depending the percentage of goals they let in during the shootout. But otherwise, their goals against would be over 4 if they allowed goals in shootouts to count. So I think all they're going to do, all like NHL.com and the teams are going to do, is there's going to be a separate category for overtime points. It'll count under goals and assists and points like it normally does for overtime goals. But they're going to probably categorize it so you have an idea of how many overtime goals Vladimir Tarasenko scores, or whoever.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do that too. Thoughts, Tyler?
So is the belief that like the goals are going to be too easy to come by and there should be an asterisk because there's more space, or?
Yeah, I think the belief is that we're going to have certain players that play more than a lot more in the 3-on-3s, and those players' statistics are going to be inflated.
Well, I mean, look, I can tell you this. Last night I covered the Rangers and the Bruins preseason game at the Garden. Both of these teams played in a 3-on-3 overtime on Tuesday night. And the difference was that with this 3-on-3, you saw a lot of structure. You saw a lot more of a system at play, which you didn't see in the first game. So I think as time goes on, you're going to see teams develop defensive systems that work, and that will not. We will have shootouts still. And I saw the first set of 3-on-3 overtimes, and I walked away going, we're not going to have any shootouts this year. I saw last night, I saw 2 teams that already played in 3-on-3, and I saw more of a defensive game, more of a safe sort of mindset, and we had a shootout. So I think teams will find ways to defend this. And so I don't know if you should put an asterisk next to them, because the goals will be harder to come by at games 41 through 82 than they were in games 1 through 41.
Yeah. Success in the overtime is going to be based more on individual talent than anything. If with all that space, David Pastrnak scores a goal 12 seconds into overtime. You're going to have, if he gets the puck and he can go wide on a defenseman, and the defenseman is slow of foot, then the game is going to be over pretty quickly. So, if a team, I'm sure there are 30 smart coaches in the NHL, and they're going to devise defensive systems that will try to prevent goals. But the problem is that sometimes players make mistakes, and when the game is speedy, especially 3-on-3 with so much room, it's going to be tough for them to limit their mistakes. And if they make one wrong step, it's going to result in the other team getting a gild edge chance.
I wanted to get Ty's opinion on the on my loophole in overtime. This is my feeling of how you can get your own line change. Because you need to get all your if you're tired, you got to get all your players changed. You can't just dump the puck in because it's not gonna. You have to make this long change. I have a theory that we're going to see an increase in intentional offsides. If a guy just like if I was a player out there, I would just carry the puck. I would just skate in before the puck and drag it in after me, and then you get the faceoff back in your own zone for sure. But I think that we could see them having to change that to similar to icing, where you can't change your line on that on an intentional offsides, because that to me is the best way to stop the play. And because a 3-on-3 faceoff in your own zone is not great, but it's not as bad as having an exhausted line.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see teams do everything. You're going to see guys. I mean, intentional offside is probably the best way to do it, but it's wacky, man. I love it though. Watching this live is a lot of fun, and people are going to love it too. It's just a matter of what do teams do to slow it down. Some goalies will just freeze the puck anytime it even comes near them, just to get a breather, just to slow it down a bit, because it's getting out of hand. And I mean that's probably the best way to do it besides the offsides, really. I mean, but this is going to benefit some of these teams that have goaltenders that are strong with the puck. You're going to see these guys really sort of push pace, like a Ben Bishop and Mike Smith. I mean, these guys that can play the puck, and what they do with it, I think that's going to make their lives a lot easier. I think when it pushes pace the other way. But this is going to be you're going to see teams try to develop strategies on how to slow it down, because it's not going to benefit everybody.
What are they doing to slow it down last night?
The teams that I want to see in this format, I want to see what the Pens put out there, because you can do Crosby, Kessel, Letang, or Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and it's going to be unbelievable.
Yeah.
Or Chicago with Kane, Taves, or it could be Taves and Hossa and Keith on the back end. I mean, any combo they put out there is going to be fascinating to watch. So I'm really excited for this. I this is one of the things that I'm actually probably the most psyched up for when it comes to the NHL season.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Were there anything specific that you saw last night that they were doing to slow it down?
Well, last night was kind of wacky because you had 2 penalties in the period, so it switched things up to a 4-on-3, and then it went to a 3-on-3, and then to a 4-on-3 again. But what you see is you just see a lot of these guys, they're being a bit more methodical with the puck, versus the first time around when I was watching these other games. It just seemed like it was just a mad dash for the other net. So you're seeing guys go up the ice with more of a plan than you did. Guys will take extra laps sort of around the ice to try to get a fresh change out there, or just get a guy in a position that they think is a stronger scoring opportunity. So I saw a bit of that last night from both the Rangers and the Bruins. If they had nothing, they would skate around. They would just do a little bit of a lap in the neutral zone, or into the offensive zone rather. So that's one of the things that I was noticing, just to get another body out there. But again, I mean, these are 2 teams. Claude Julien and Alain Vigneault are, I think, 2 of the smartest coaches in the NHL. So you're gonna see other teams and other players. I should say the players are smart for that matter as well. So you're gonna see them going forward and do things like that. But cycling around and circling just with the puck on your stick, almost like you're playing a video game, was the play of the night last night, really.
Yeah, that's all. I've seen some of that too. It's really interesting. Also in Boston hockey news, we can't leave the show without talking about Hillary Knight, who has signed with the Boston Pride. Hillary Knight is, for those of you who don't know, is one of the best female hockey players alive right now, for sure, and an all-timer in many people's eyes. A real big power, kind of like the Milan Lucic of women's hockey, if I would describe her. She's big, she's strong, and she's dominant. She's got a heck of a shot, and she's going to Boston. I mean, she was playing in Boston already, for the Boston Blades, right? So now she goes, which is the Canadian Women's Hockey League, but now she goes to the Boston Pride. Are you getting is there any hoopla going on around the Boston Pride right now, Ty?
A little bit. It's picking up for sure. I think that anytime a league starts up, It's always tough going in the beginning in terms of like getting people's eyes on it, but obviously getting a player like Hillary Knight is going to change that dynamic, I believe, in the city, and I think it's going to be a good thing. I mean, I've been reading articles about this, which is the craziest thing. I think that just shows you where they're at, because they're starting to get media exposure and they're starting to sort of develop a market, and I think that's the biggest thing right now. And if that happens, ticket sales will happen, fans will show up, you'll get crowds, and there's no shortage of media coverage right now. Especially, I haven't even checked now that they've added Knight to see how that increases and how that changes. So
Yeah.
I think this is going to be, you're starting to see a buzz about this team for sure, and about this league for that matter. And it's slow and steady, but it's going to be there, it sounds like. So that's obviously a plus for that league and for those players who definitely deserve it.
They're doing a really good job at the Twitterverses and things like that, Instagram, Twitter. They really are doing a good job marketing it. Yeah, so that's, I mean, I agree. I'm a big supporter of it. So we're gonna cover some games, and we're gonna definitely get ourselves to some hockey games. Mike's gonna go up to Buffalo. Russ and I are gonna go to New York. You should try to get out to Boston, Ty, for sure. Okay, guys, I think that's all the time we have for today. Really, we appreciate everybody joining in. And if you're in the city of Philadelphia today, or tomorrow, good luck getting around.
God bless you.
With the Pope. God bless you is right. And remember, guys, a lot of games this weekend. We are only 12 days from the beginning of the opening of the regular season. Do you believe that? 12 days. 12 days. I know. So things are happening fast and furious. By the end of this weekend, all the teams will pretty much have their lineup set up, I imagine, as people are getting sent up. The Flyers threw a bunch of guys through waivers today, including Jason LaBarbera, who was in camp, is gone on waivers. Guys, remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon.